Hey, how's everybody doing today? Happy Monday. Thank you for tuning in for yet another episode of the Trish Point oh show in our grand evolution of things. I'm really excited to be kicking off today with our next guest, Amil Mendez. I personally, I've known him for several years now. I find his company, his mindset, just like the general way he handles himself in the world to be very inspirational. And I'm sure that after you get to meet Amil and get to find out a little bit more about him, you're going to feel the same way. So let's get to it. Hey, Amil, how you doing?
Hey Trish, what's going on? How you doing?
I living life,
Surviving, right?
surviving. I think as we all are, we're just like all you can do at this point in time. Well, it's so let the people know like who you are. Tell them all about Rayne. Tell them about your process, the whole business.
Okay, so Rayne is a audiovisual full service production company. We do audiovisual, lounge furniture, pipe and drape, and some small decor items. Just depends on what it is,
Let the
but
people know like who you are.
most of it is centered around corporate events. We started off primarily a um, as a social event company back in 2010. And then for the last 3 years have really been focusing on corporate events. We still will take weddings and birthday parties, things like that, but they're on a case by case basis.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. I mean, it's basically what's your sweet spot? So the corporate events right now are your sweet spot. Um, like your preference. Like, what's your ideal event? We'll start there.
Um, Conferences. I mean, we do right
Okay.
now probably about 6 to 10 conferences a year. And, the reason I like them is you're there for an extended period of time. You set up one day and you're basically reusing that equipment for 3, 4, 5 days, breakdown. And it's a lot of work, but I would say the stress load is less than that of running around, on weekends trying to knock out, 5 or 6 events. Uh,
Yeah, right. I mean, because I can't imagine. I mean, I know that there are companies out there that do like event after event after event. They've got multiple trucks, multiple teams,
mhm.
but that's just kind of stressful. And ultimately, had you ever tried going down that road, or was it just something that you kind of looked at and you were like, no, this is just not for me. I want like one master team that does each event individually, and that's it.
No, I mean, when we started, that's what we did. I
Okay.
did have 2 trucks, but I mean, we were renting trucks and we were running all over the Beltway. And, I always say it was easy getting them set up. The hardest thing was trying to break them down because, you can have maybe a 6 or 7 hour window to set up events all over the area. But typically, if they're not letting you load out, the next day, you got to get all these events picked up within a 2 or 3 hour period.
Tough.
And so that
Yeah.
was always a tough part. And when I started, I was 10 years younger as well. So, I had a lot. I mean, I still move pretty good, but I could outwork anybody and I still can outwork most people, but it's just, it's a little bit harder on my feet, my knees, elbow tendonitis, things like that. So, um, the thing is, nobody's ever going to appreciate what you do the same way you do. And, building up that trust and finding the right people is always tough, and, I'm just at a point in my life. I built my company up and now I want to start to enjoy the fruits of my labor, be able to spend time with my kids, my wife, go to, their events. And that's what I'm allowed to do now. I missed years of soccer games and, performances and things that went on the weekends because I was always working. Most of the corporate stuff was during the week. And, on the flip side of that, on the corporate side, you are dealing with professionals. We hire a lot of union labor. And so
Okay.
a lot of these guys know more than I do. And
Yeah.
it's a breath of fresh air when you can just tell somebody, here, this is what I need you to do. And you don't really have to check on them. As long as you plan correctly, you can let them go do their thing, and there's value in that.
Yeah, it's yeah, there is a lot of value in that. I mean, I had told people, in before, but I had like just recently hired an assistant, and I pay, I hired her at a higher, let's say, like starting point
Yeah.
than a lot of people out there take on an assistant. But for me, it was worth it because I'm like, she gets done in 2 hours what other people have taken 10 hours to produce. There's a lot of value in that for me. So yes, I pay her more, but I get, a higher degree of output, from her, from what she does. But had it always been that way? Was that did you find that was like an easy lesson to learn in terms of like how to staff your company? And how was that progression, or was it like did it take you a while?
It took me a while. It's tough, when for me, not working in this field and having to grow in the field, as opposed to maybe somebody opening a restaurant and they worked in a restaurant industry for 10 or 15 years, something like that. There was a learning curve. And I grew up in the catering business. My mom was a caterer for years, 20,
Yeah,
25.
shout out to your mom. Amazing cook.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
have had the privilege of being at 2 events that she's catered, and her food always runs to the crumbs of the bins. Like really, like people are, you go to some cater events and it's all like, chicken in a sauce or beef in a sauce. Not at your mom, not when your mom's catering. People are online. There are seconds and thirds. And they're scraping off the burnt edges, because even that's delicious. Really, yeah, and her company is
Well,
oh
she's retired now, but it was called
okay,
Honesty Gourmet Events.
that's right, honesty.
Yeah, um, she started actually as a vending company, and they still run her and my stepfather still run the vending company. But that's how I initially got introduced to events, was through working with her and working for her. But you know, growing up, seeing what she struggled with
Yeah,
also gave me motivation to not struggle with the same things. And I can share a quick story. I remember, we were doing well. Um, and I remember we had just finished the holiday rush, and I was just dog tired. Like I know I opened gifts with the kids and things like that, but as far as just the holiday time, there was no interaction with me and my family at all. So we got through that. We got through New Year's, and I remember going into the office, and I had like 60 messages from clients, from potential clients. And at this time, it was just me and maybe like 3 or 4 people. We were doing all the events. And what I said to myself was, you know what, I gotta start replacing myself. And that's really the best move I ever made, was hiring an assistant. And a lot of people that have worked with me know Tiffany. Um, and Tiffany was great. I mean, she helped take my company to the next level because she was able to orchestrate, all those calls that were coming in, and she was a fast learner. And so that was the first and best move that I made, and really allowed me to get to the point where I'm at now, because you can't do it all by yourself. And
right.
that it's one thing to find a good person. The great thing about Tiffany was she knew a lot of what I already needed, because I knew I needed help, but I didn't have a system. I didn't, I wouldn't have worked well with someone where they had to come in and I had to show them what to do, basically,
Yeah.
and give them a process and a plan. That just wasn't going to work for me, but that was instrumental in me really getting my business to the next level.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and I think that was a great level of insight on your part to know, um, what you needed from the person you're hiring. Because I think that, sometimes like the worst hiring decisions, really doesn't come down to a bad boss or a bad employee or a bad this or a bad that. It's just a mismatch of personalities,
Yeah.
and expectations.
I-
Go ahead.
oh, okay. So the other thing that has really, I think, as a business owner, and even not even as a business owner, just in management, when you are managing people, I think it's too easy for people to point the finger at themselves. And so, and I see it all the time. And
Yeah.
my philosophy has always been, no matter what it is, no matter how simple it may be, to point the finger at myself, because business is about processes.
Yeah.
Coming up with a way to get things done so that people can work efficiently. And so I'll just give you an example. Like we have these couches in our inventory, and they have legs, but the legs are kept in a separate bin. So when we take a couch out, we know we have to take 4 legs, right? So I can't tell you how many countless times, we've gone out and forgot the legs, and I had to, have my wife go to the warehouse, and I had to send an Uber to bring us couch legs, right? Now, most people are probably going to be pissed at their employees, and hey, why did you forget the legs? We need the legs all the time.
Right.
Is it the employees, or is it the process? Is it, hey, did you put in a process where
Right.
there's a checklist, or there's some kind of way, or the idea that I came up with is get a fanny pack and just staple it on the inside of the couch and just put the legs in there. But when you start always, if all you ever do as a business owner is point the finger at somebody else, you'll never grow that way. You know what I mean? And so it's all about getting past hurdles, finding ways for people to come in and be efficient. And some people are not a match, but a lot of times they could be
Right.
a match if you just learned, if you as a business owner were better at putting them in a position to succeed.
Yeah, and that's always that's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Well, and now that you've, I assume like many people, you've probably had to scale back in your company.
Hmm.
But have you scaled back completely, or like what does it look like right now for Rayne?
It doesn't look like anything. um, no, I mean it's dead as a doorknob, man. But I mean, from the obviously we're not doing any events.
Right. Well,
And so I'm taking this time to do the things that I probably should have hired somebody else to do while we were busy. Um, and so I'm working on the website. I'm growing our online presence, and it's working. I'm seeing results. They're not
oh, that's fabulous.
Yeah, they're not resulting in calls, but I can see the action on the website. I can see the action on different social media outlets and things like that. So that's what I'm doing, and then just getting reacquainted with my family, and just it's interesting when you're in it. It's almost like when you're in a relationship, a bad relationship, and not to say business is bad, but this is just an example. When you're in a relationship, you don't really see what you were going through until you get out of the relationship, and then you see the things that, like I said, I'm a person that looks in the mirror, but the things that you were doing wrong, or the bad choices that you made, or the things that you can improve on. And so that's what this time has allowed. A lot of people will put together New Year's resolutions and things like that. But the fact of the matter is, during the holidays, you're so busy with holiday stuff that you don't even really sit down and put together a plan on how to go into the following year. And so with everything just stopped and there's no interruptions, that's what I'm able to do now.
Putting together your year plan, because I'm with you. I feel like you're going to need it if you're a business owner. We were just talking, before the call, we were talking about coping mechanisms and the different things that people do. And there are people who are in different situations.
Mhm.
But I think that as business owners, and if you want your business to survive this, then that's exactly what you need to be doing. Is you need to be talking, having a good hard look at what your business model is, your processes, and really how you could, like, what's your first move out of the gate? what are you going to do
Yeah.
with yourself? Because it's not going to look the same. It's not going to look the same for any of us.
No,
Um,
not at all.
and then, and so what was interesting to me about sort of like your life story, and knowing that your mom had the catering business, you had that whole, I had no idea that you had such a sweet tooth up until that whole milk bar commenting situation that happened. So for anybody that's watching, there was like a while ago, someone had commented that milk bar, which is like a cookie place, bakery thing that they open up different locations. That she was super excited about it, and that we were going to all make a field trip about it. Amil pipes up and he's like, "It's just don't do it, don't do it. I don't recommend this particular bakery." And we're like, you're a bodybuilder. What do you know about bakery and baked goods? And he's like, well, let me tell you. And we found out that not only do you have a sweet tooth, but you bake. You're like a professional baker. You could open up your own shop.
Yeah, I actually used to have my own shop. I had my own bakery. It's I've been in this area since I was 4 years old. And so when I had my bakery, what's the guy, the attorney, the lawyer that started doing cakes and stuff? I can't remember his name. On U Street, he was an attorney. I think he was on some TV show, Oprah.
Okay.
It's slipping my mind, but I was doing Red Velvet long before Red Velvet hit the area, and I think the problem is that maybe I was a little bit too early for the market.
Gotcha.
Dessert, I mean, everybody's always loved desserts, but it just wasn't as big a thing. There wasn't
a thing.
Yeah,
right. It wasn't a thing.
And all these different bake shops now, and so I actually learned from the I can't remember her name, but I learned from the baker that used to bake, I think, for Clinton. She was the one that actually used to have this bakery, and she got sick. And so I started learning the recipes, and then I took it over and kind of ran with it. And I mean, I would have people come all over the Beltway to come pick up stuff. But, in my mind, I've always thought of business like, okay, there are certain things that I want out of life. And can this sustain the lifestyle that I want to live? And at the time, I was young. I was probably like 20, 22, 23. I was working at the club at the same time. So if anybody remembers DC Live, and if somebody ever hit you for $20 because you wasn't dressed right or you didn't have ID, that might have been me. I'm sorry. But that's the club.
No hard feelings. No hard feelings.
No hard feelings. But, I would work at the club from, I think we would have to be there maybe 7 or 8. And, to like 3 in the morning, I would leave the club, go straight to the bakery. I had a cot at my bakery. I'd sleep for like 2 hours and then wake up and start baking. And then on Sundays is the day I would bring all the baked goods to the club, and I, sell like sweet potato pies and slices of red velvet cake, pound cake, all that kind of stuff. But,
That's a good business model.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. But going back to what you said, even with the milk, the cookie place milk, they have a great name, great concept.
Sure.
But the problem was when I walked through the door, I didn't smell anything. And so
yes.
Then I'm looking at prepackaged cookies. And for me, when I go to a place and I'm looking for something, I'm looking for experiences when I eat. And so, for me, and they got this great name and people have been talking about it, and I walk in and I don't smell anything. And then I'm looking at prepackaged cookies. I don't even see any. I mean, no flour like on the counters or on the wall. I mean, that's just not for me. Now it's great if, and it's not bad. The cookies aren't bad. Don't get me wrong. But again, I'm looking for an experience. I want to walk into a place or walk out of a place and just feel like, man, I could spend all my money up in there, like
Right.
I can't come down to Southwest waterfront anymore, because if I do, I'm going to gain 5 pounds. You know what I mean? And so that's just the way that I see desserts and the way that I see food. The places, like I said, good name, good concept. If I had to possibly, stop someplace and get some cookies for a client, maybe I would go there. But honestly, I would always prefer something that's fresh baked. That's just me.
Yeah, it was it was just really really funny to find that out. And well, and the reason that it was funny, I guess we didn't complete that thought, is because you are like way into weightlifting. You are, you did not expect the feedback from the last round of pictures that you posted on your own social media, and you were like, oh, I did not realize people were that thirsty out there, but apparently apparently they are. And they were looking, and they were they were shocked. They were how does that go? They were shooketh
Yeah.
by Amil. So, but well, was that always part of who you were,
Yeah.
or who you are, or was
Yeah.
that also a journey?
I took a long break from competing in bodybuilding competition, but I've always loved to work out, and it's what drives me. And you'll be seeing something, and probably not this week because it's supposed to rain every day pretty for the most part, but next week you'll see something pretty interesting that I built outside, as far as working out. But even when I had my bakery, I used to work out, and I remember when I would do wedding cakes. So one of the things when you're stacking a cake is you have to cut the top off to level it out. And so the big thing would be when I did wedding cakes, people would always say, hey, what you gonna do with the scraps, man? Can I get some scraps? And that was always the toughest part, because I used to love scraps myself. I mean, the top of the cake is the last part that gets done, so it's always the moistest too. Right. And so imagine you're doing a wedding cake for 300-400 people, and you got these big, you're just shaving off cake, and you don't want to throw it away. But people used to always ask me, how in the world could I have a bakery and stay in shape too? And there were times where I can indulge, but then there were times if I was getting ready for a competition, I just, I had to let it go. There was no other way. Or I would, if somebody wanted it, they could come by and get the scraps.
Right.
I hate to say, scraps sounds like throwing away food, but really the scraps were probably the best part.
Right. It really probably was the best part, because it was like the freshest. Because you're cutting off you're cutting off the cake scraps, but then the rest of the cake has to be stored.
Yep.
A lot of people kind of make the assumption that when they buy a cake, or when they get like a professional cake done, that it's super fresh. Well, it is super fresh in like the grand scheme of things, but it's not fresh out of the oven same day fresh. Like it's typically several days between when it was baked and when it's been served. And that's just a product of having to, cool the layers and frosting and, get that all to you. So I could see where the scraps would be incredibly appealing. Just having a whole lot of fun with that though. So have you done any baking while in quarantine? Have there been any sort of like requests, or are you the cook in the family? Not really.
So question one, I have not baked since I shut down my bakery.
Okay. Wow.
Well, let me see. Is that correct? No, that's not correct. I have.
Well, you've also been very busy, so there's that. Yeah.
So no, that's incorrect. I have baked. I just, I don't know. It's a thing for me.
Yeah.
So, I did some of my kids' birthday cakes when they were younger. I had some clients actually when after I shut down my bakery, that would still come to me because my mom was still catering,
right?
And so I had a commercial kitchen to work out of, and I had some clients that I would still do some desserts for. And typically, they would have big events. So, you know, they would, there was one family in particular where they would have a cookout every year. I think it was the 4th of July, and they would always celebrate like 4 or 5 birthdays, and I would do a bunch of birthday cakes.
Oh, nice.
You
Okay,
know,
so that would make it worth your while.
correct. And
So
then,
it's never like you're baking off like a 12-inch cake for somebody. They're
right. And then holiday season. So, you know, that was always really busy with pies and pound cakes and red velvets, carrot cakes, things like that. But I probably haven't baked in years. I would say maybe 10, 12 years, definitely 10 years, probably like 12, more like 12 years. As far as cooking in the house, I would say my wife does most of the cooking.
okay.
I will chime in on her cooking, which sometimes it can be well received. Sometimes it's not. It just depends. When I cook, it's typically a specialty item, or like yesterday I did barbecue. I posted some ribs that I did.
Yeah, right. Yes, it was the ribs that prompted this whole thought process. I'm like, oh, he's a baker and he can cook barbecue. Wow, that's skill though. That's, you know, because that's, I mean, it really is a skill, because you know, what I usually find with people is that they have like a thing. They either do sweet or savory. They either do barbecue really well, or they do pasta very well. So everyone, like, unless they're in a professional capacity where they're cooking things regularly, you know, they're not like a jack of all trades in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really. So how did those ribs turn out? Because they look good.
Oh man, yeah, they were good. And
Okay, good.
what, 5.5 hours of smoking and, you know, watching. I use well, I don't know. I can't say if you'll get that ring using charcoal, but I don't smoke with anything but wood. So
Okay.
it's
Wow.
yeah, it's very
That's legit.
it's very what's the word I'm looking for? You have to pay attention, you know. So
Yeah.
I mean, every 20 minutes, you know, maybe 20, 30 minutes, you're checking your fire, you know, to maintain that temperature. And the thing is, every time that I smoke, I learn something. And so one of the struggles I used to always have was my fire, my temperature. And so,
Oh.
and really cooking in general is about patience, especially a
Yeah.
lot of people don't like to bake because they don't have the patience. But um, if you can get that part down, then it's just measuring. But so what I learned yesterday was I would always rush my fire. So when you light your wood, you have to let the charcoals get well, you have to let the wood break down in the charcoals, and then after a certain amount of time, you're going to get a temperature. And the problem was I would always rush that. And so if, let's say, you know, I like to smoke at 250, but if I was at 200 and I still had fire, like my wood was still on fire, I would add more to try to get it up to 250. Well, what happens is when those coals settle, the temperature will actually go up higher than 250. So my struggle would always be trying to get it back down, and I would always have to lift up the lid on the smoker and kind of play with the little thing on the side. It's like a vent. And so what I learned yesterday was really to let it burn out, see what your temperature is once the fire is totally burned out, and then add you can start adding wood a little bit at a time till you get the right temperature. And then once you get it, it's really easy to maintain, because if it drops, you know, it might drop like 10 degrees, 15 degrees, you add a little bit of wood and you're good to go. And it's just sustaining that temperature for the full time, which it does. It's tedious. You know, it's like babysitting.
5 hours worth of babysitting.
Yes, constant babysitting.
But
So,
it's such a delicious baby when it's done, though.
oh yeah, I mean, I'm not to the point yet where I'm developing my own rub. Now, my mom has a rub that she created years ago, and she actually had the opportunity to package and sell at stores, but she just never followed through with it. But
Okay.
you know, that's the next step. And then, you know, developing my own sauce. you know, I don't know. Eventually I'll go that far. You know, right now I'm using, not rubs that you can really buy out of the grocery store, but specialty rubs from, legitimate, you know, pit masters, things like that. But I
Right.
think that's the next step. But I feel pretty comfortable in my method of smoking. I can do ribs, I can do briskets. You know, that there's two different methods. There's a high and there's a high and fast and a low and slow. I haven't experimented with the high and fast yet, so that's probably what I'll do next.
Yeah, well, you certainly will have like a loyal fan base of people on your social media looking to see what you're doing because you know, some of the comments after those ribs were, you know, where do you live? I'm going to be stalking you. I'm going to show up at your house at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, don't let me find out what kind of car you drive, the whole thing. And I'm like, well, there goes social distancing. You know, I guess when there's barbecue involved. You know, but I enjoy you know learning you know what people are doing, especially during this downtime. You know, I was just talking to somebody else. You know, it's not the break that we wanted. We definitely all wanted a break on
Right,
our own terms. You know, preferably in Tahiti or on some other tropical island.
right.
You know, with maybe a daiquiri or something going on. But it is a break that some of us kind of needed. But you know, you do what you can. You know, so who knows? There, you know, there might be a pivot to some like cooking situation happening in your future. You know,
Yeah.
the future is wide open.
So I you know, I have a plan, you know,
Okay.
based on what I think will happen. Uh,
Okay. I know you do. You don't have to share it because we're on live, but you know, but I know you're the guy with the plan. So
yeah,
you have a plan. I believe it.
I've thought about. Um, I've toyed around with starting a food truck. Um, you know, it's just for me. I can't do anything halfway,
Right.
and so that's the hard part. Um, you know,
Is
if
that a pivot would be a hard pivot.
it would be a hard pivot. And then the thing is, I'm always going to want to get back. I like events. I like live events. I have
Yeah.
no. Listen, I don't want to get into catering. That's out of the question. But um,
Done.
you know, it would be tough because once things pick back up, if I start the food truck and it's doing well, I'm going to want to get back into events. I mean, here's the thing when you have to when when you have to work when what you love becomes work, you really find out if you love it. You know
Right.
what I mean? And one thing I can say about events is that I still love events, and even on my hardest days, I still love events. When I did food, and when I had my bakery, I loved it. But there was a time when it became so stressful, whether it's, you know, people, you know, again, I was ahead of my time. So it was tough trying to get $3 for a slice of homemade cake, you know what
Right.
I mean, at that time. And so, you know, it became stressful. And you know, or if, you know, something, you know, you're relying on the products that you buy from vendors to be what it's supposed to be. You know,
Right.
I mean, I'm very meticulous and strategic when it comes to baking. I don't even use measuring cups. I use a digital scale because to me that's the
Oh
only way
wow.
you can really create the same cake, dessert, whatever over and over again is with a digital scale. Because here's the thing with a measuring cup, how do you know if you have the same amount of flour? How do you know if it's packed the same? How do you know if it's sifted the same? And so that's why I used to use a digital scale. But going back, you know, in my mind, I can probably get through, you know, there's always going to be some X factors, but I can probably get through um, to September, October, the way things are now.
Okay.
After that, it's going to be it would it would be a hard pivot, you know.
It's time to
Yeah,
sit and look at a different plan
it's
after that.
definitely time to look at a different plan. But here's the other part of that. Even if I could get to September, October, that's me depleting my reserves. and that's never the goal. And so really, probably over the next 30 days, I'm going to have to start making decisions. And those, it could be just, hey, what can I do to get by? So like I said, even if the economy opens up, we're probably going to be last. So the question is, okay, if we're last, if we don't get back to where, people are pushing their stuff off to 2021. So let's just say, we're not able to really function the way we need to until then. How am I going to get through the next 6 to 8 months?
Right.
Because I still have storage. So let's say I don't get the permit, still have to pay storage, but I'm not making any money off of it. I still got, my bills at home. What am I going to do? And it's like, okay, I can't switch careers because I don't want to go someplace and work, and then tell them I have to leave in 8 months. And I don't want to lead them on to think that I'm going to be there longer than what I am. So I'm looking at different fields. Maybe, I'll wait tables, bartend. I've done that before. You know what I mean? And so, maybe industries like that I can get into where I can survive. Whoops.
Oh.
Sorry. My phone rings on my laptop. I put it on do not disturb, but it still rings there.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So I'm looking at different things. I may have to go and maybe work for another event company.
Well, that's the thing is like, I was talking to Eric Chasen last week, and he's with Instawork, and we were talking about event labor, and that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that there's going to be such a mad rush on event labor once these events do go back up, because the social events will come back first, right? It's all going to be all of these weddings and bar and bat mitzvahs that were postponed or that were always in the process of going on as scheduled, and now everyone's going to be crunching at the same time for the same dates. I'm seeing it already where people are getting bumped out of their venue because they don't have the dates or whatever they needed for their particular event, wedding or what have you. So labor is going to be it. Labor, and that is, and that's a good perspective as well. It's kind of like, well, all right, if you go back and you're in event labor for 2 to 3 months while everything else comes back up to speed, then that's not so bad, because it still brings money in. It gives you something to do. It keeps you connected to the industry you love,
right.
And it's not a hard pivot. It's something you can pick up and then drop when you need to.
It's something you mentioned. I'm going to add another twist in there for people that have had to postpone their events. The other issue might be that, remember, venues are not getting money.
Right.
And most people, unless you're like a historic place, if you have contracted a place that actually has, that they're leasing their space, they might be in trouble right now. And so what could end up happening is you've booked this place, because we in the event industry live off deposits. You know what I mean? Nobody's holding the money for a year or 6 months, whatever. And so same thing with venues. And my worry is that there's going to be some people out there and that have booked a venue, and because of this, the venue wasn't able to pay their lease. Maybe they get evicted, something like that. And now all these people that have put down deposits are not able. There's no venue. There's
no venue. There's no deposit.
Yeah, there's no deposit, and that could create another problem in itself. But like you said, also, if you had a wedding in May, you probably got that date because that's a premium month, and so now you're more than likely either you're going to have to settle for maybe a Thursday or a Sunday or something like that, some kind of off day.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if you'll be able to get that date the following year, because the venues, they're not going to want to. They're going to want to get some more money in. You know what I mean? And it's the nature of the beast. So if you had a date in May this year, they may not necessarily give you a date in May next year, because they want to get new money for that date, because they know those are premium dates. It's going to be tough. I mean, the good thing is, with what I do, I own all my equipment, so it's nothing, for us to switch dates and to move people around. But there's going to be some major issues going on once this thing gets back going.
Yeah, and I was, in my conversation with Janet Flowers a couple of weeks back, I'll have to have her back on, because she's kind of gearing up for Mother's Day. But she brought up a very good point. It's like, the price that she's giving her brides for this May, for this event, for this wedding, is just not going to hold. Guaranteed, it's not going to hold for next May, because there are growers who are shutting down. There are distributors who are shutting down.
Yeah.
There will be a tremendous shift in the marketplace on supplier side, and then that's going to affect, of course, the user cost, or the purchaser's cost. So she can't guarantee that the $3,000 event that she quoted you this year is going to look anything like it's going to look next year. It's because it's just going to be more expensive to procure all that material. So that's where I think that like rentals are faring a little bit better, because like you said, it's just as long as you can work out your storage situation and maybe control your costs that way. Well, then it's just going to sit. I mean, yes, you're losing the dates now and you're losing the revenue now. But when you're back up and running, you're able to just get those trucks on the road and hit the ground running and move forward from there.
Yeah.
What has been the feedback from a lot of your clients? Obviously, like everybody's kind of shifted dates, but did you, in your business model, did you work? No, let me rephrase that. What was the percentage of working through planner or provider side and working directly with a client? Did you find that you had a greater percentage of success with one versus the other?
I would I would say this, most, if not all of my clients, whether they're planners or direct companies,
right,
I work well with. And
right.
The thing is,
Sure.
Just going back to corporate events, the one thing I do enjoy about corporate events is that your clients become, they're not just one event clients. Now, if you're doing maybe, like mitzvahs and things like that, and you'll get referrals, or maybe somebody has 3, 4 kids, but for the most part, there's clients I've been working with, I mean, every week for the past 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And so it's for me, it's about the relationship. Yes, I got to make a profit, I got to make money and things like that. But if it was a wedding, just like a one-off, it would be totally different. But at the end of the day, it's about maintaining the relationship within reason. And as long as you're dealing with reasonable people, I don't think there's nothing that should keep you guys from making it work for both parties. So for me, I've gone outside of my contract guidelines to accommodate my clients, because I see them every year or multiple times a year every year. So it's a little bit different. But we had a conference that got canceled. Like literally, the truck was loaded, and if that's a wedding, birthday party, mitzvah, listen, you're not calling me once I load the truck to cancel your event. You're just not going to do that.
Right.
That's what my guidelines state. But there's a relationship with this client, so we worked it out. She's going to have a conference next year, hopefully, and we're going to provide the service and really only charge her for the labor that it cost us to load the truck. And there was some back end stuff we spent time doing, but it's not going to be anything exorbitant. So I go above and beyond, and I would do that with a planner or a client, because
Right.
The thing is, if there could be planners that I work with, they may not it may not be the same client, but they send me business on a regular basis, and so at the end of the day, it's about the relationship. I think too many people focus on the money and not the relationship.
Yeah.
Money is a byproduct of the relationship.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right about that. I think that now more than ever, I know that there are people, like we talked about before, there are people out there who are scared, and they're not, we're not all in the same boat, but, there's that meme going around. We're not in the same boat, but we're in the same storm.
Right.
And so there are, different people in different boats in different situations. But if you have the ability to be flexible in your business guidelines or your business model, to accommodate for people and their own situations, then I think that's just a measure of good branding and goodwill. If you can do it, obviously there will be people out there who were out real money, and so they can't do that. But like you said, you worked it out with that one client where they were like, listen, just pay me for labor and pay me for what we've already done, and we'll talk about it. And I'm sure they're going to appreciate it.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
They sent
you
the
know,
letter already. Sent me a
oh, good,
card like 2 days later.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. And it's and that's all you kind of can do is kind of like work on projects and different pieces of branding. So have you been? So now you were never anyone to be like overly represented in Instagram. Have you been like kicking up that game?
Yes. I mean, Instagram. Um, I haven't posted much on there. So
Okay,
what I try to focus on, it's tough because there's so many different ones, but um,
everything is
I will,
everything.
I will probably start ramping up my Instagram shortly with just maybe things I have posted before, or going through pictures and looking at, hey, I can't believe I never posted this. This was a great event.
Right.
Um, but I've primarily been focusing on my Google presence. And so my blog, I think I did put up maybe like, I don't know, 12 to 15 blogs in a week and a half. And also Pinterest. I focus on Pinterest because Pinterest is like when you do Google searches, Pinterest is always high for images. And so I've been building up my Pinterest boards, and getting my website listed on other websites.
No,
So
I'm
it's all
super
about
supportive.
increasing, presence online. And so that's and like I said, I've been seeing great results, especially and what's been kind of surprising is the blogs. I did two blogs. Um, One was like what was it, five ways to save on audio visual, and I didn't really do anything to promote it other than put it on my site, but it's gotten a lot of good results. So you learn things too during this time, and so that's something that I picked up on.
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things where, for better or worse, these, like you said before, if these are things that you probably wanted to get to at a certain point in time in your business, but you just didn't have the time to get to.
Right.
And so, why not use the opportunity now, to get that underway, or, to get that knowledge base under your wings, or, just do something. And how are, speaking of kind of being motivational and just getting out there and doing things, how are your kids handling? Because you have a daughter, who's out in LA. Is she still in LA through all of this, or,
Yeah.
um, all
Yes.
right, all
So
right,
she all right. So my oldest is in LA. She's doing good. I offered for her to come home, but
okay,
she's chilling where she's at. She's still actually working. Let me.
okay,
She's still kind of working. Definitely, she's still getting a check, so she's able to pay her bills. She has some roommates. I think I think it was four of them. One is still there, and the other two have gone back home. Um,
okay,
but I don't, I don't really. As long as she is not calling me for money, I don't really keep up with all that. But she's doing well. She's cooking.
all right.
She's. I mean, surprisingly, she's taking care of her business. And then I have
That's
the
amazing.
two little ones here,
Yeah.
and they, I mean, they're pretty easy. The thing is, what I've realized is that I didn't know my kids as well as I thought I did. When
Oh,
when you're around, unless you're homeschooling or
Right.
you don't spend that much time with your kids. I mean, if you think about
True.
it, you know, homework and, maybe, you probably spend like 3 hours out of the day with your
Right.
kids because, they wake up in the morning, they go to school. You're not getting home from work, till like 5 or 6. Then you got, if they're not finished their homework, they got homework, but you're not really interacting with them on a social level. It's basically, hey, I need help with this, blah, blah, blah. And then you got dinner and maybe, for the most part, our kids would be they would watch something different from us. So there's really not that interaction. And
Gotcha.
so one of the things I can say about this is I'm learning a lot about my kids. Like
Oh,
the other day, my 8-year-old asked me a question about bacteria, and I didn't know the answer. And so my 12-year-old, we were talking about bacteria because she was doing it in school. And I had to say, hey, Rayne, can you answer your sister's question? And I didn't realize how smart my 12-year-old was. And she retained so much information from school. And I'm like, wow. And I'm intrigued. And then, with my 8-year-old, I'll say one of the things I'm learning is we like to play phase 10. And so when we first started playing phase 10, at the end of each hand, you have to count your cards. And so for like cards, I'm trying to remember what's in there. 1 through 9 are worth 5 points. And then it's 10, 11, 12 are 5 points. And they have like a wild card that's 25. But when we first started playing, we would count the cards for her. And or we'll let her count them, but then we would kind of rush her and then count, with her. And then one day I was like, you know what? Let her take her time. If it takes 2-3 minutes for her to, because she would have to put them in a certain amount of order. And through this process, as we play phase 10 about twice a week. Now she can add up all the cards on her own. She can, they can be in any order for her to add them up. And so, that, long story short, the kids are doing fine. They adapt. They're learning how to, they've been baking cookies and apple dumplings. My 12-year-old, she cut the grass last week. That's
nice.
a lawnmower too. So, no riding lawnmowers over here, but, they've done well. And I told my wife the other day, I said, look, we must really be meant to be together because we've been together pretty much 24 hours, 7 days a week for the past month and a half. And I can't even say you got on my nerve once.
Oh, well, you two are adorable. You've been together for how many years? We've been married now.
See, why'd you have to put me out there like that?
Oh, no, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
I think it's, I always have to go back 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 13 years.
Fabulous. And because you've been together that long and you can survive quarantine, you could survive a whole lot. And that's my feeling on it.
One of the things I've always told people is that if you're dating somebody and you really want to find out if they're the one for you, go on a cruise. Because when you're on a cruise, you're in tight quarters. There's no place to hide, and pretty much, all your business is out there as far as what your bodily functions are. So,
really?
if you can and I'll tell you a story. I went on a cruise years ago, like 20 years ago, and and this is the thing that I remember the most about the cruise. By the time the cruise was over, when you go on a cruise, you're pretty much eating dinner with the same family couples each night.
Right.
And the first night of dinner, everybody's laughing, getting along, giggling, meeting people. Man, by the last 2 days of that cruise, dinner was quiet and silent. You didn't hear anybody talking about nothing. You would see people walking through the ship. At the beginning, they were holding hands. At the end of the cruise, single file. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that before.
That's great.
And so that's why I've always felt like, man, you want to find out if somebody's the one for you, go on a cruise. Go on a 7-day cruise, and you have to be around that person 24 hours, 7 days a week for 7 days. And you will find out if that's somebody you can tolerate.
Right. That is a very sound piece of advice.
Yeah. Well, I don't want
I
to
can tell.
tolerate, but you get what I'm saying.
Right, exactly. No, that it works. I think that this is a good test for a lot of people out there. But just we're right now at the 55-minute mark. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to in your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave it though. My final thought of my interviews, what I like to do is say, okay, we've gotten to the end of quarantine. You can now go out and do whatever the hell you want to do. Where are you going to eat?
Oh, it's probably not going to be any place here.
That's okay. It could be anywhere, like anywhere that you can't go now, basically.
So there's two places that stick out in my head. There's one in San Antonio, and if you go, you got to go to the Pancake House.
The pancake out of everything in San Antonio, the Pancake House. Okay.
Well, there's two actually. Let me back up. You have
All right.
the Pancake House, and it's 3M. Is it 3M or 2M barbecue? Outstanding. I mean, when I say well worth the trip, because a lot of times I'll go to places that are on Food Network, I'll go.
You do love your food tours.
Yeah, so I'll go to Food Network to see what they recommend. Then I'll go to the local websites to really see if it's backed. And sometimes it's hit or miss. But those are the two places. San Antonio has two spots. When I was in Miami, golly, I can't think of the name of the place. Gee whiz. I posted it, but it's a guy from here who opened up a restaurant in Miami. It's not in South Beach. It's right next to Wynwood. So you can actually, if you're familiar with Wynwood, there's an area right next to it. And I can't think of the name of it, but he used to be the executive chef at Sobe Restaurant and Lounge in Lanham. And he used to cook for a lot of the Redskins players, things like that. But he opened up a restaurant down there, and he had these chicken and waffles. And honestly, it was the best. It was the best chicken and waffles I had ever had. I don't know what he put on it. You didn't need syrup. I mean, it just worked. And
Nice.
I mean, it was incredible. And so those are the first two places that come to mind. I want to be able to go out and not think about what I'm doing. I think as a society, we'll all be more cautious, more, practice better hygiene
Right.
than what we did before. Not to say, we had bad hygiene, but I've seen some things.
No, we did. We had bad hygiene because people had to be reminded to wash their hands.
Yeah. But, I want to be able to go out and not worry about coming home to my parents afterwards. You know what I mean? And even myself, I dealt with a bad flu this year. So, I just want to feel comfortable about interacting with people in general. But as far as food, I think those would be the two places. I mean, I got some others I have on my list that I haven't visited that look really good.
Okay.
Actually, no, let me back up. Hold on.
That's all right. You can back up.
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Okay.
Yes. Austin has a very good reputation of food right now.
Yes.
The thing is, I've had the food in San Antonio. I went to the place in Miami, but no, I do want to get to Austin, Texas, because they have a laundry list of places that I need to try. So let's just say Austin, Texas.
So you're gonna get out to Austin, Texas, and you're doing a crawl. Is basically what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna need about 5 days because it doesn't work when you try to get it all into there. I mean, there's a thing about enjoying food but being miserable, and so it's hard to really, if you're eating at 3 places, and like for me, if I go to a pancake place and they're known for pancakes, I gotta get all the different flavors.
You've got to do the thing. You've got to do the thing.
If you saw my barbecue plate after my competition, and that actually when I did my bodybuilding competition, I posted a picture of the barbecue plate that we went to in San Antonio. That was the 2M barbecue or 3M. It's one of those.
Okay.
and we ordered every meat that they had on the menu.
Because you need to.
Yeah, you
And
got
you should.
to taste everything. So
Yeah.
Austin, Texas. That's the next stop. That's the next foodie
All right.
stop.
The next foodie stop, Austin, Texas. Well, thank you so much for being my guest on today. If anybody out there wants to reach out to Amil, it's through rayneevents.com, or of course through what's a good email for you if people want to like reach out to you, for anything upcoming?
A Mendez, first initial, last name. So Amil Mendez, A Mendez at rayneevents.com. Please do not put me on your newsletter list.
Yeah, don't do that. Whatever you do. But all right, thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of this, rather soggy week. But that's all right. It is what it is. We'll get through it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
It was a pleasure.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. All right.
Bye bye.